This was supposed to come out on the anniversary of Breath of the Wild's release, but as anyone who knows me will tell you, I am very bad at deadlines. Breath of the Wild is amazing, like actual literal masterpiece amazing. Sure, it's not perfect, but perfect is a synonym for boring. Complaining that a game that does all these amazing new things and gave us an experience of a lifetime has some flaws that are inherent to scope and ambition is kind of the reason why 5 years ago everyone was complaining about how video games are slowly becoming a grey paste of a medium. So the gorgeous graphics occasionally have a habit of looking washed out, like a beautiful oil painting that someone spilled a glass of water on. So there might not be enough traditional Zeldaing in there to satiate longtime fans. So the frame rate tanks quite often, and the major complaint, the game is way better at incentivizing exploration than it is at rewarding it. A criticism which I think comes across as missing the forest for the trees, when talking about a game that could not possibly be more about the journey than the destination. Was that a good intro? I thought it came across as quite powerful. It sets the scene for what this is generally about, and introduces the tone of my character. I think I'm going to stick with it. I think it's going to be fairly impossible for me to do Breath of the Wild justice in just one video at my current ability, so I'm just going to focus on one particular element of this game for this video. I think it's become increasingly obvious with hindsight that the flavour of this particular sub-era of gaming was the open world game, the most popular example being the 3D platformers in the late 90s, or how, a few years ago, it was the third-person semi-linear, semi-stealth-based craft 'em up thing. And The Last of Us was a bit of a systemic perfection of that genre, in the same way that one could argue Horizon Zero Dawn was to the open-world towers 'em up genre. Horizon Zero Dawn is a fucking terrible name! It is so hard to say. Okay. And The Last of Us was a bit of a systemic perfection of that genre, in the same way that one could argue Horizon Zero Dawn was to the open-world towers 'em up genre. You see, it's funny, because you climb towers, which means you're going up. But then on literally the same day, Breath of the Wild comes along and goes, "Look here, mister, I'm going to show you how it's done," because there's an alarming lack of openness to your open world game. I'm not sure why Breath of the Wild manages to be both lowly and pompous in just one sentence, but we'll roll with it. We'll call it a metaphor about the astounding variety and appealing to everyoneness of the game or something. So you've got your traditional open world game with towers, perhaps an Ubisoft one, since they're the most ubiquitous example. Words are fun. You climb to the top of a boring copy-pasted tower, and when you get to the top, the game fills out your map with a bunch of icons for all the side missions in that region. This has been a feature in pretty much every Ubisoft game released over the past few years, plus a bunch of other games like Shadow of Mordor and Horizon Zero Terrible Name, and I've long since got tired of this particular trope. They're emblematic of the approach to content in these games. You do the same non-challenging and non-engaging thing over and over, copy-pasted over a large area, and I think it would be easy to make that complaint about Breath of the Wild. It has large environments that are revealed by towers, therefore it's the same as those other games with large environments and towers. Is it obvious that I'm setting that point up to fail? The obvious change Zelda makes is that it doesn't dump a bunch of icons on you when you reach the top of a tower. In Ubisoft games, the towers provide specific markers for events. In Breath of the Wild, all you get is a topography map. Areas are named, and if you're anything like me, you'll read the names and check out places that sound interesting. You may be able to see man-made structures on the map, but they won't actually appear as icons unless you've been there. The point is that instead of giving you information, the game asks you to use your vantage point to engage with the environment. It's like show don't tell, but with video games or something. You seek out the information yourself, enabling your own exploration and engagement with the world, rather than just being a checklist dispenser for chores. Unlike a game with the previous system, where running to a marker has you just pushing forwards until you reach there, with Breath of the Wild you're scanning the landscape, looking for interesting things, because they could be there. It makes all the empty space in Zelda kinda useful. You might not find something, but you're exploring. With the previous tower system, if there's nothing on the map, then you know there's nothing there, so empty space is wasted space. I remember all the critics saying The Witcher 3 was great, a sentiment that I completely agree with, but they said that it was significantly better when you turned off the map icons and followed quests with verbal directions and your eyes. The Witcher 3 clearly intended for some players to do this, since all the NPCs give actual directions based on actual landmarks and street names. But Breath of the Wild is designed from the ground up to intentionally give exclusively player-driven exploration, rather than be a hidden option in a menu. This is the way that Breath of the Wild subverts traditional open world design, right? It comes along, sees Ubisoft making towers and goes, hey, that's a good idea, you can get a vantage point and see the area from the top of a tower. You can make a fun game out of climbing the tower, and you can use them as a way to reach areas quickly from a sort of hub. Ubisoft responds, nah, we just use them as quest dispensers. But it's not just about how you use the towers in the game, it's about how you climb them too. In Far Cry, towers are a series of contextual button presses. You face a surface and press space, then move to the next surface and press space until you're at the top. The most complex play that goes into a Far Cry tower is working out what surface is the button press surface. Developers in these games hard-code solutions to problems, leaving little to no room for any player interaction. But here comes Breath of the Wild, which hard-codes basically nothing, meaning you can reach the top of a tower by shooting yourself at it on a rock, or making a flying machine, or just, climbing it, with actual freeform climbing mechanics that are a system and don't rely on anything contextual, just a vaguely vertical surface. And that kind of philosophy just permeates into everything in Breath of the Wild. It's got an attitude towards gameplay that's really rare, seen in games like Isaac and Divinity, where everything is just an interconnected system of systems that you can muck about with to practically infinite extents. So here's something I'm 90% sure the devs didn't realize you could even do, but the system they created here makes it more of a feature than an exploit. You've got a boomerang made of metal, and you throw it and it spins through the air. While it's spinning through the air, it's in a damaging arc, meaning that it'll damage anything it touches. As it comes back to you, you pick it up with magnesis, and now you're carrying around an infinitely spinning boomerang that will damage anything it touches. Then of course there's the traditional throwing a cuckoo at your foes and just letting nature do the rest. It's truly systemic gameplay. Weather affects the temperature, you can be too cold or too hot, and have to wear specific clothing to deal with that. But more to the point, rain will put out fires and make climbing harder. Rain makes surfaces wet, causing electricity to spread easier. Rain makes surfaces slippery, meaning shield surfing is faster. The game sets up interconnecting systems and lets the player experience them as a gameplay sandbox, as opposed to a series of context-based interaction, which is genuinely impressive considering, 1, open world games almost never do this, and it fits so fucking well. An open world game is deserving of open gameplay. 2, 3D Zelda games are the games that champion context-based gameplay to begin with. The game is pointedly anti-completionist too. Yeah, fuck that guy, who does he think he is, having a huge beard and just being really nice and friendly and positive? Seriously though, the game is pointedly anti-completionist. Many open world games are infamous for this checklist style game design, where each icon is a literal checkbox for you to check off and move on to something else. It's really not compelling outside of the cheap skin-in-a-box nature of it. But think about the Korok seeds. One of the many complaints about Breath of the Wild was that there were way too many Korok seeds for any one person to reasonably find. Yes there were! You weren't supposed to find them all, or even more than 20%. The lack of icons has you stumbling from horizon to horizon in a general direction, looking for points of interest and things to do. There's 20 bazillion Korok seeds, and you find them entirely by sight. So while you're wandering to the next quest, you see an interesting structure and check it out, and hey, a Korok seed. The way the game encourages you to treat them is as these little breadcrumbs that you collect along your journey. In case it wasn't obvious enough, they're revealed to be literal shit. You've collected 800 of these, and the reward for collecting all of them is just to discover that they are actual shit. Are you proud of yourself? And that's what the Blood Moons are all about too. Blood Moons respawn all the enemies you killed since the last moon. They erase completion of camps, meaning you can have camp takeover elements without checklist gameplay. You can try to take out all the camps in Zelda, but what's the point? They're not marked for any progress, and they'll just come back later. The reason people take them out then comes to them wanting to experience more of the gameplay and perhaps get a cool reward, as opposed to just ticking a checkbox.
The blood moon rises once again. Please be careful.
But none of the things I've spent like 10 minutes harping on about are really that important. I mean, like, It's a great evolution of the open world genre, and everything it does stands in stark opposition to the normal problems of its genre. By opposing many aspects of traditional design philosophy, it manages to be one of the first truly open world games ever made. That is a really fucking good tagline. It's the missing link in the evolution of open world games. I didn't even do that on purpose, by the way. It's that missing link in the evolution of open world games. And now we've crossed it, we can allow this truly open world design to be explored and expanded upon in the future. There's so much more I could expand on when talking about this game. For example, I could explain how the game sidesteps the ludonarrative dissonance that is in even the best open world games. Or I could talk about the character of Zelda in this game. Or I could talk about the amazing environments, or the art, or the cooking. But all that kind of pales in comparison to just how good it is to play on a moment-to-moment basis. The magic of riding your horse through the field, soaring through the sky, exploring forgotten ruins and hidden islands, talking to the citizens of this understatedly fleshed out world that reminds me a lot of Avatar for some reason. Oh hi there, Uncle Iroh. The game is absolutely gorgeous, and I love this world. You travel around it, meeting all sorts of really fun characters with awesome design. It takes up this episodic structure where you, the outsider, rides or stumbles or falls from the sky into a town and talks to the locals who are like, hey outsider, I have an issue. So you go on a quest and solve that issue. And it's always this fun, unique and awesome experience. The game has this undeniable and unapologetic sense of adventure, and while I'm sure it's down to the things I said earlier, it doesn't really matter. It's there and it's magical and it's what matters. I don't have any footage for this story, and some others I've talked about because I didn't record my time in this game. Most of my footage of this game is from the amazing Golden Bolt, so thanks dude. Anyway, stay with me here. I remember this little quest where you show up at a stable/inn, and you hear these two brothers talking about a treasure somewhere nearby that they're trying to find based on a poem. So you go out and look, and based on that poem you can find some cool treasure. While I was looking for this treasure, I ended up going into some woods where I bumped into a bear. I got in a fight with this bear and I ended up climbing a tree to strike him from above, when I realised I was getting a little button prompt to ride. So I jumped on top of the bear and ended up riding him. Then, all of a sudden I got attacked by a Hinox, which is a kind of giant. The reward for the quest was nothing. I could find 1,000,000 of those in 1,000,000 other places. But damn did it stick in my mind, because the destination may have been underwhelming. But the journey was amazing. I just went out to follow some slightly abstracted directions, and ended up fighting a giant while riding a bear. And that one paragraph pretty much sums up Breath of the Wild. Shame there's no footage of it. And that's it.
You did it!
I did it. Oh my god.
Thanks, Golden Bolt, for not getting us any footage.
Dude, that was
of this very specific thing.